The hall of the Interstellar Alliance shimmered with colors that humans had never seen. Light bounced off crystal walls and strange metallic surfaces, creating rainbows in every direction. The air was filled with a hum of voices, some musical, some harsh, and all completely alien. Delegates from dozens of worlds moved gracefully, or sometimes awkwardly, through the vast chamber. Each species had brought their finest representatives to the centuries-old contest, a tradition that humans had recently joined. It was called Choose the Prettiest Bride, and it was meant to celebrate beauty, diplomacy, and the blending of cultures. Yet to Rylan, a young human envoy, it felt more like a strange parade of perfection. Rylan stood near the center of the hall, adjusting the simple uniform he wore. Unlike most of the delegates, he did not have glowing garments or elaborate decorations. Humans were still newcomers in this alliance, and their clothing and mannerisms looked plain next to the exotic splendor of other species. He observed the contestants. They were stunning, each in their own way. A creature with scales that shimmered like molten silver, a being whose skin glowed in soft waves of color, a tall figure whose eyes reflected entire star systems. All of them were beautiful in a way that humans had not yet learned to fully understand. The rules were simple. Each delegate had to select a bride from among the participants. The winner was the one whose choice reflected not only taste but wisdom, insight, and a deeper understanding of the qualities that made someone remarkable. Everyone expected Rylan, the human representative, to pick a woman whose appearance was immediately striking. That was what humans had always done, or what most other species assumed humans would do. Then he saw her. She stood alone at the edge of the hall, observing the crowd with an intensity that made many delegates step back. She was not beautiful in any conventional sense, at least not to human eyes. Her skin glowed with faint bioluminescent patterns that pulsed slowly like the heartbeat of a living machine. Her eyes were large, dark, and multifaceted, reflecting light in sharp, prismatic angles. Her limbs were long and thin, ending in delicate but clawed fingers. Her presence alone made several species murmur nervously. Most of the other delegates avoided her, whispering about how frightening she seemed. But Rylan felt something else: curiosity, intrigue. There was a weight behind her gaze, a sense that she had lived and learned more than almost anyone in the hall. Her posture was confident yet calm. She did not need to shine or dazzle, she simply was. He approached her, stepping carefully over the gleaming floor. "Hello," he said in the common tongue which most species could understand. She tilted her head. The subtle movement of her mandibles made a soft, clicking sound. "I am Zyra," she said. Her voice was low and melodic, carrying a vibration that seemed to reach beyond words. "You are human." But he could not ignore the spark of intelligence, the depth behind her alien appearance. "I would like to know more about you," he said. She regarded him silently for a heartbeat. Then she nodded slightly. "Then you will see things you do not expect. Be ready." Delegates were asked to demonstrate their social grace, their ability to interact with other species, and their understanding of customs. Beautiful contestants smiled and glimmered, performing dances, sharing gifts, and reciting poetry. Zyra moved differently. She walked with purpose, not ceremony. She spoke clearly and confidently, answering questions with insight and subtle humor. Observers who expected flamboyance were instead confronted with wit, intelligence, and calm authority. Rylan noticed the way she read the room. While others were performing for attention, she seemed to understand who was observing, who was scheming, and who posed danger. He realized that this scary alien possessed something the others did not: an instinct for truth, for strategy, for seeing through appearances. When the round ended, most delegates assumed Rylan would choose one of the dazzling beauties. A few humans whispered among themselves, skeptical of his judgment. But Rylan's mind was made up. He looked at Zyra and saw someone rare, someone who challenged expectations. She was not just beautiful or frightening, she was extraordinary. "I choose her," Rylan said aloud, pointing toward Zyra. A hush fell over the hall. Aliens of all kinds turned to look at the human delegate who had defied tradition. Some gasped audibly, others clicked their mandibles or hissed in disbelief. Zyra raised an eyebrow, her glowing patterns flickering faintly. "You have chosen me," she said simply. "Yes," Rylan said, feeling a mixture of nervousness and certainty, "because you are special." Humans were known for their bravery, their curiosity, and occasionally their stubbornness, but never for making choices so contrary to expectation. Many assumed humans would select the prettiest contestant, as dictated by the contest's name. But Rylan had ignored the surface and looked deeper. He had chosen not what was expected, but what was true. Zyra approached him, her movements careful but deliberate. She extended one of her clawed hands, not in threat but in acknowledgement. Rylan shook it firmly. There was an energy between them, a spark that seemed to stretch beyond understanding, beyond species, beyond appearances. The judges called the next phase. This round was designed to test intelligence and problem-solving. Teams of two would face challenges requiring cooperation, logic, and quick thinking. Rylan and Zyra were paired together by circumstance, though they had already formed a subtle bond. The first task was a puzzle that involved rearranging floating energy blocks to complete a pattern. Delegates from other species struggled. They were accustomed to brute displays of skill, charm, or beauty, but the puzzle required patience and lateral thinking. Zyra moved methodically, her multifaceted eyes calculating angles, her hands adjusting the blocks with precise, practiced movements. Rylan watched and learned. "You see patterns differently," he said, almost to himself. "I see what is there, not what is expected," she replied, her voice calm and confident. Together, they completed the puzzle faster than any other team. Whispers of astonishment followed them as they moved to the next challenge, which involved navigating a small, artificially dangerous terrain filled with shifting obstacles. Many competitors failed, panicking when walls moved or when strange creatures blocked their path. Zyra analyzed everything quickly, anticipating movement and guiding Rylan with exact instructions. Despite her intimidating appearance, Rylan realized she inspired trust. Her scariness was only skin deep. Her skill, intelligence, and calm demeanor made her a natural leader. He felt an unusual sense of safety, even in a room filled with creatures that could crush humans effortlessly. As they finished the trial, Rylan noticed the reactions of the crowd. Some delegates still looked frightened. Others were impressed, and a few were quietly envious. Humans rarely acted like this. They rarely chose courage and intellect over appearances. In that moment, Rylan felt the weight of what he had done. By choosing Zyra, he had not only defied expectation, but had also made a statement. Humans could see beyond superficiality. Humans could recognize true worth. Later, when the day's events ended, Zyra and Rylan found a quiet corner of the hall. The crowd had dispersed slightly, leaving only a few curious observers. Zyra looked at him, her glowing patterns dimming to a soft pulse. "You are not like the others," she said. "I could say the same," Rylan replied. "Everyone here assumes humans will act in predictable ways. I didn't want to be predictable." "You have chosen wisely." The delegates would talk for weeks, questioning why the human picked the alien who frightened almost everyone else. And Rylan did not care about the whispers. He had seen something others had missed. He had chosen not just with his eyes, but with his mind and heart. As the night settled and the strange lights of the hall dimmed, Rylan and Zyra stood together, looking at the stars beyond the crystal windows. He realized that this was only the beginning. The contest would grow more dangerous, more complex, and the challenges ahead would test everything about them. But for the first time, Rylan felt certain of one thing. The alien he had chosen was unlike any other being he had ever known. And somehow, he knew, that was exactly what humanity needed in a universe filled with wonders and dangers. And so, under the alien lights and among the whispers of countless observers, Rylan and Zyra prepared for the journey ahead, bound not by expectation, but by something far rarer. Mutual respect, curiosity, and a spark of understanding that might one day change the galaxy itself. The morning after the first day of the contest, the hall buzzed with renewed energy. Delegates whispered in corners, analyzing the events that had unfolded. Rylan arrived early, careful not to draw too much attention, yet even among the thousands of aliens, he could feel the lingering stares. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but choosing Zyra had stirred curiosity and suspicion. Zyra stood near a large observation window, watching the nearby starfield. The bioluminescent patterns along her arms shifted slowly, pulsing in rhythm with her thoughts. When Rylan approached, she turned her multifaceted eyes toward him. "You are early," she said, her voice calm. "Most humans arrive late, distracted by the novelty. You prepare. Then you will learn. Observation is as important as action. Most delegates act without seeing what truly surrounds them." Holographic obstacles shifted constantly, forcing participants to think quickly. Their first challenge of the day was a navigation trial. Teams were asked to cross a wide chasm filled with floating platforms, some stable, some rigged to collapse. Alien contestants hesitated, calculating risks in ways Rylan could barely understand. Zyra, however, moved forward confidently, her limbs bending and stretching in ways that defied human logic. She hopped onto a platform and reached out a hand to Rylan. "Trust your instincts," she said. Rylan glanced at the floating obstacles, then at her. He hesitated. Many of the other human delegates might have been afraid. But he saw the intelligence behind her actions, the way she calculated balance, speed, and timing. Taking a deep breath, he followed her. They moved together as a team. Zyra led with precision, adjusting to the shifting platforms instantly. When a section collapsed beneath them, she caught Rylan just in time. Other teams struggled or fell, some laughing nervously, others screaming in frustration. Zyra's presence turned fear into confidence. By the time they reached the far side, a small crowd had gathered, murmuring in surprise at the unlikely human-alien duo who had succeeded where most had failed. "Good work," Rylan said, still catching his breath. "You followed well," she replied. "Many fail because they hesitate." Each team was given a set of devices, some resembling crystals, others mechanical spheres which they had to align according to hidden patterns. Many delegates tried to guess, others panicked, but Zyra's approach was calm, systematic. She examined the devices, traced faint energy lines with her claws, and whispered instructions to Rylan. "You notice the smaller patterns first," she said. "Large patterns emerge naturally. Do not force them. You, humans, are not what we expected." The third challenge involved a maze filled with shifting walls, hidden traps, and holographic illusions designed to mislead even the most experienced participants. As they entered, Rylan felt a sense of unease. The maze was disorienting, and every wrong step triggered alarms, blinding lights, or shifting platforms. Zyra moved through it with uncanny precision. Her eyes reflected angles that humans could not see, and her body adjusted to sudden changes with fluidity. When they encountered an illusory pit, Rylan froze. "Step back," Zyra instructed. "It is not real, trust your senses." At one point, a section of the floor tilted sharply, sending several human and alien contestants sliding. Zyra caught Rylan with one hand while extending her other limb to steady the floor mechanism. "You are stronger than you realize," she said, her glowing patterns brightening slightly. "And you are more remarkable than I imagined," Rylan replied. He was beginning to understand her uniqueness. She was not merely scary, she was extraordinary, a being whose abilities transcended physical form. By the end of the maze, they had not only survived but finished among the fastest teams. Delegates whispered among themselves, questioning how a human and such an alien could excel together. Some openly speculated that Rylan had chosen Zyra not out of judgment but luck, but he knew better. Luck had nothing to do with it. Insight, trust, and respect had made them successful. After a brief break, the final trial of the day began. This challenge was unexpected. The teams were presented with a diplomatic scenario involving multiple alien species. Each species had conflicting demands, subtle grievances, and hidden motives. Delegates had to negotiate peace, form alliances, or prevent sabotage without knowing all the rules in advance. Rylan and Zyra approached the task carefully. Zyra observed each species, her eyes flickering as she processed their energy signatures and subtle movements. She whispered to Rylan about tendencies she had detected. Some species were easily intimidated, others were manipulative, and a few were unpredictable. "Do not respond to anger with anger," she advised. "Observe, then act. Humans often rush, you must wait." Rylan found that listening carefully and trusting Zyra's instincts allowed them to navigate the complex web of diplomacy. Other teams argued, blustered, or resorted to threats. Rylan and Zyra remained calm, identifying shared interests and subtle compromises. By the end, they had resolved the scenario with minimal conflict, surprising judges and competitors alike. Many species had underestimated the human delegate, assuming he would fail or follow superficial instinct. By choosing Zyra and trusting her insights, Rylan had not only succeeded but demonstrated something remarkable. Humans could form alliances through intelligence, patience, and mutual respect, rather than fear or force. As the day concluded, Rylan and Zyra retreated to a quiet corner once more. The hall was still alive with whispers and observations, but they had earned a measure of respect. Zyra's glowing patterns pulsed slowly, reflecting a mix of relief and pride. "You performed well," she said, her voice soft but steady. "Many humans would have faltered. I realize now, the contest is not about beauty alone. It is about character, intelligence, and understanding. And you have all of that." He had chosen Zyra not because she was the prettiest, not because she was easy to understand, but because she challenged him, taught him, and inspired him. She had awakened something in him, a recognition that humans had strengths beyond appearances, that their courage, curiosity, and insight were formidable even among the stars. As the artificial lights dimmed and the delegates began to leave, a new shadow moved through the hall. Rylan noticed it first, a group of unknown aliens observing them from a distance. Unlike the other contestants, these beings were not part of the challenge. They moved quietly, eyes sharp, scanning the room with intent. Rylan felt a shiver of unease. Something was not right. Zyra noticed it too. Her patterns flared slightly, signaling heightened awareness. "They watch us," she said. "Not for the contest. Their interest is different. Be prepared." Her uniqueness attracted attention, not all of it friendly. "Do we confront them?" he asked. "For now, observe," Zyra replied. "Rash action will reveal weakness. Patience will serve us better." Rylan understood that the human-alien partnership was becoming a symbol, one of defiance, intelligence, and courage. That night, in a quiet chamber provided by the organizers, Rylan and Zyra reflected on the day. The trials had tested their abilities, trust, and patience. They had proven that humans could rise beyond expectation, that appearance was only one measure of worth, and that intelligence and courage could defy assumptions. Yet the shadow at the edge of the hall reminded them that the universe was vast, unpredictable, and often dangerous. "You are unlike any other human I have encountered," Zyra said quietly, her glowing patterns dimming in the dim light. "Curious, brave, and willing to see beyond the obvious. That will serve us well in more ways than one." Somewhere among those stars lay challenges they could not yet imagine. But for the first time, Rylan felt a confidence he had never known. He had chosen the right partner, the one who could face trials not with beauty alone, but with intelligence, courage, and heart. The contest was far from over. Danger, intrigue, and political machinations would rise in the days to come. But for now, in this quiet moment, Rylan understood a fundamental truth. Humanity had something extraordinary to offer the galaxy, and Zyra, the alien who had terrified others, was key to unlocking that potential. And so, as the twin moons of the Alliance's central world glimmered outside the chamber, Rylan and Zyra prepared themselves for the challenges ahead, ready to face the unknown together, bound by trust, curiosity, and the extraordinary spark of mutual understanding that had first drawn them to each other. The next day, the atmosphere in the contest hall felt different. The energy was tense, even electric. Rylan noticed it the moment he entered. Delegates whispered, eyes flicking toward him and Zyra as they passed. Some gazed with curiosity, others with envy. And somewhere in the crowd, hidden in plain sight, Rylan caught glimpses of unfamiliar figures, observers who did not belong to any known species in the contest. They watched silently, their presence unsettling. Zyra noticed them immediately. Her glowing patterns brightened subtly and her claws flexed with barely restrained alertness. "They are here again," she said, her voice low. "They are not interested in the contest. They are interested in you and me by extension. But they are patient predators. They do not act until the right moment. We must be careful." Teams were assigned a complex scenario: to retrieve a rare energy crystal from a simulated, dangerous environment while negotiating with multiple alien factions, each with conflicting interests. Failure could mean elimination from the contest. Rylan and Zyra approached the challenge cautiously. As they entered the simulation arena, they were immediately confronted with shifting terrain, strange creatures, and alien delegates attempting to outmaneuver each other. The ground itself seemed alive, shifting beneath their feet, forcing them to adapt continuously. "Balance," Zyra said, glancing at Rylan. "Do not force the path. Move with it." As they advanced, the shadowy observers appeared closer. At first, it was only a feeling, eyes watching from the periphery. But soon, Rylan noticed faint movements, figures darting between pillars, using the chaos of the challenge to mask their observation. He felt a growing sense of unease. "Do you see them?" he whispered. Zyra's multifaceted eyes scanned the area. "Yes. They are testing us, measuring our responses. Do not let them distract you." Other teams were already attempting to retrieve it, many failing spectacularly as the hazards proved too complex or too fast. Zyra examined the crystal's defenses. "We must approach indirectly," she said. "Force will not succeed. Observation and timing will." When a barrier shifted, she predicted the movement before it happened, allowing them to slip past. When a trap activated, she used her limbs to disable it without triggering alarms. Rylan marveled at her abilities. Every movement was precise, calculated, and intelligent. She was terrifying to others, yes, but for him, she was brilliant. Halfway through the arena, a sudden alarm blared. Several unknown devices had activated, projecting holographic duplicates of the crystal. Teams rushed in panic, unable to distinguish the real from the illusion. Zyra stopped. "Patience," she said firmly. "Do not react to what seems immediate. Observe the patterns. The crystal does not move with the illusions." Using her strength and agility, she lifted Rylan over the moving barrier just in time. They rolled to safety on the other side, the crystal secure. Behind them, other teams struggled, and a few were caught in mechanical hazards. Judges recorded everything, murmuring among themselves at the duo's efficiency. Some delegates scowled, resentful of their success, but Rylan hardly noticed. His focus remained on Zyra and the subtle signs of danger that the shadowy figures continued to present. When they exited the arena, the observers had disappeared, but their presence left a lingering unease. Zyra's glow dimmed slightly, a sign of her analytical mind shifting toward strategy. "They will try again," she said, her eyes flickering. "The question is when and how." Delegates were assigned to form alliances and broker deals under complex and sometimes contradictory conditions. Zyra and Rylan faced three factions, one aggressive, one manipulative, and one secretive. Each demanded immediate attention, yet their demands conflicted. "Do not react to the loudest voice," Zyra advised. "Truth is often hidden in silence." As they worked, one of the manipulative factions tried to trick them with false information, hoping to force a wrong decision. Zyra's eyes flickered in calculation. "Do not trust words alone. Observe gestures, energy shifts, and alignment. Logic will reveal deception." By the end, they had successfully negotiated with all factions, securing their position without compromising the interests of others. Observers nodded in approval, impressed by their teamwork. Yet the shadow of danger loomed. As they exited the negotiation room, Rylan noticed small anomalies, subtle vibrations under the floor, fleeting shadows at the edges of his vision, and faint energy signals he could not identify. Zyra's patterns glowed slightly brighter. "They are close," she murmured. "They will not wait long." He had come to understand Zyra's value, her insight, and her courage. He trusted her instincts, just as she had come to trust his judgment and adaptability. Together, they had navigated the first major challenges of the contest. But now, an entirely different test was approaching, one that could endanger not just their standing but their lives. Later, when the day's formal trials concluded, Rylan and Zyra found a quiet observation balcony overlooking the galaxy. The stars stretched endlessly before them, calm and distant. "You are unusually calm," Rylan said, "even with the observers, the traps, and the manipulation. Those who react without thought do not survive long in environments like this." Up to this point, the contest had tested strength, intelligence, and diplomacy. But it had also become clear that some dangers were hidden, beyond rules or expectations. Choosing Zyra had been more than a personal decision. It had placed him at the center of events that neither he nor most humans could fully understand. Suddenly, a sharp vibration ran through the balcony floor. Rylan instinctively glanced around. Nothing appeared immediately out of place. Zyra's glowing patterns pulsed rapidly, a silent warning. "They are near," she said. "Stay close, observe, do not act rashly." The shadowy observers had not yet revealed themselves fully, but their presence was undeniable. As they descended the hallways, Zyra spoke again. "These beings are testing us, measuring human potential and our combined capability. They seek something, perhaps power, perhaps knowledge, but we are aware. Awareness is our first defense." The contest, meant to celebrate alliances and appearances, had become a crucible for more than skill and intelligence. It was a test of vigilance, adaptability, and courage under pressure. And for the first time, he understood that the galaxy itself could be as dangerous as any challenge constructed by judges or designed for entertainment. By the time they returned to their quarters, the atmosphere outside had grown quieter, the crowd dispersed. Yet the memory of the shadowy figures remained, like a lingering current beneath the surface. Zyra settled near a large observation window, her patterns dimming as she processed the day's events. "You have done well," she said quietly. "Humans are capable of more than they understand. You have begun to see beyond expectation, beyond fear, and into strategy and perception." The stars stretched before them, calm and eternal, yet Rylan knew the calm was temporary. Danger was closer than ever, and the shadowy observers would act when they were ready. He also knew something else. By choosing Zyra, he had not only defied expectation, but had stepped into a deeper web of intrigue. The contest was no longer just a test of choice or ability. It had become a stage for survival, strategy, and the unpredictable dangers of the wider galaxy. And he was determined to face it with the ally he had chosen, the alien who terrified others but had already proven to be remarkable beyond imagination. Together, they watched the stars, knowing that tomorrow would demand more than intelligence, courage, or beauty. It would demand vigilance, adaptability, and trust beyond measure. And for the first time, Rylan realized that the galaxy was not simply a place to be observed. It was a challenge to be met, and with Zyra by his side, he felt ready to face it. The following day, a tense silence hung over the contest hall. Delegates moved cautiously, their whispers carrying under the high, crystal ceiling. Rylan could feel the weight of eyes on him and Zyra, though some were curious, some envious, and some openly wary. The shadowy figures from the previous day were no longer hidden. They lurked at the edges of the hall, blending in with other observers but unmistakable to Rylan's trained eyes and Zyra's heightened senses. "They are preparing," Zyra said quietly as they navigated through the crowd. The next challenge is no longer simply a test of ability. It is a trial of survival. A massive chamber stretched before them, filled with shifting platforms, floating energy barriers, and a network of hazards designed to test agility, intelligence, and teamwork. But today, it was not just the contest organizers controlling the obstacles. Subtle manipulations indicated outside interference. Rylan realized that the shadowy faction could influence the environment itself. As the challenge began, teams were instructed to retrieve a set of rare energy cores scattered across the arena. Many delegates rushed forward, confident in their speed or strength. Rylan hesitated, waiting for Zyra's lead. She assessed the arena with precision. "Observe first," she said. "Rash action will be punished. The environment is unpredictable. Patterns exist, but only if you look closely." Halfway through the arena, a sudden energy surge illuminated the chamber. Barriers that had previously been static began to move erratically. Other teams panicked, many falling into traps or becoming trapped by shifting walls. Rylan noticed subtle distortions in the energy fields. Someone or something was manipulating the arena. "External interference," Zyra said, her eyes narrowing. "They are testing us, attempting to provoke error. Ignore them." When a trap activated beneath them, Zyra caught him just in time, using her strength and agility to propel them both to safety. The energy cores lay ahead, glowing faintly on isolated platforms. Retrieving them required precise timing and coordination. Zyra's plan was simple but brilliant. Move one core at a time, anticipate shifts in the environment, and stay alert for interference. They began with the first core. Zyra extended her limb, careful to avoid the energy sensors. Rylan mirrored her movements, careful not to trigger alarms. They secured the core and moved to the next platform. As they did, a hidden trap activated, sending a small energy pulse toward them. Zyra deflected it with a flick of her hand, protecting both of them. Other teams were not so fortunate. Some were caught in energy pulses, others fell into traps, and a few screamed in panic. The shadowy observers remained at the edges, silent but watching, recording every reaction. Rylan realized that the danger was not the contest alone. It was the unseen faction testing human resilience, Zyra's abilities, and their ability to work together under pressure. As they reached the final core, the most dangerous section of the arena appeared. A massive energy field pulsed unpredictably, surrounding the platform. To cross it, they would need perfect timing, coordination, and trust. Zyra studied the pulses carefully. "Watch the rhythm," she instructed. "Move together. Hesitation will cost us." They began moving, Zyra guiding each step, each jump, each balance adjustment. The energy field pulsed, then receded. They advanced, synchronizing their movements perfectly. Just as they reached the core, a sudden shift caused a platform to tilt violently. Rylan nearly lost his balance, but Zyra caught him instantly, stabilizing them both. The final core was within reach. Zyra extended her limb, snatched it, and immediately triggered a protective shield to prevent the energy field from destabilizing the platform. They had succeeded. Other teams were still struggling or had failed entirely. Judges murmured, clearly impressed by their precision and teamwork. Exiting the arena, Rylan felt a mixture of exhilaration and exhaustion. But there was no time to celebrate. Outside the arena, a small group of aliens confronted them. One of the shadowy observers had revealed itself. It was tall, with dark, metallic skin and eyes that gleamed with intelligence and malice. "You have done well," it said, voice cold and sharp. "But you will find that your choices have consequences beyond the contest." "Who are you?" she demanded. The alien smiled faintly. "We are observers of potential. Your species is interesting, and you human are exceptional, but curiosity can be dangerous. You and your companion have attracted attention. Be wary. Not all who watch are friendly." "We will not falter." The trials had tested their skill, intelligence, and trust. But now it was clear that the contest was only part of a larger game, one that involved unseen observers, hidden agendas, and potential danger. "You are remarkable," Rylan said quietly. "I did not realize how capable you truly are, not just in the contest, but in handling threats I cannot even see." "It is not about capability alone. Observation, patience, and trust are as important. Many fail because they react too quickly without understanding the consequences. Their adaptability, curiosity, and willingness to learn could make them formidable even in a universe filled with beings far stronger or more experienced." As they spoke, a faint alarm sounded from the hall's monitoring systems. Zyra's glow brightened instantly. "They are moving again," she said. "Closer. They test us not only in the arena but outside of it." "Be ready." Rylan reviewed strategies, recalling every lesson Zyra had taught him: observation before action, trust before hesitation, patience before panic. Zyra, in turn, analyzed every potential threat, mapping patterns in the observers' previous movements and predicting their likely next steps. By dawn, they were ready. The arena for the next challenge awaited, but so did the shadowy faction. Rylan realized that the contest had shifted from a test of appearance or skill into a test of survival, strategy, and resilience, and they were at the center of it. As they stepped into the morning light, Zyra's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with determination. "We proceed together," she said. "Together," Rylan confirmed. They moved forward, aware of the stakes, aware of the observers, and aware that each decision could carry consequences far beyond the contest. Yet Rylan felt a calm resolve. Choosing Zyra had been more than a decision. It had been the beginning of a partnership that could face anything the universe might throw at them. And somewhere beyond the walls of the hall, the shadowy figures watched, calculated, and waited. The next trial would not just test skill or intelligence. It would test courage, loyalty, and the strength of the bond between a human and the alien he had chosen against all expectation. For Rylan, one thing was certain: he would not falter, not while Zyra stood by his side. Together, they would face the trials ahead, not as human and alien, not as competitor and participant, but as a team capable of challenging the assumptions of an entire galaxy. The morning of the final challenge arrived with an electric tension that hung over the contest hall. Delegates moved silently, many casting glances toward Rylan and Zyra. Their partnership had become the focus of attention, some with admiration, others with envy, and a few with barely concealed hostility. The shadowy observers had not been seen for several days, but their presence was felt in the subtle disturbances of the hall, the quiet monitoring of every step, and the faint energy signatures that only Zyra seemed able to detect fully. "You feel it too, don't you?" Rylan asked as they prepared to enter the arena. Zyra's glowing patterns pulsed gently. "Yes, they will act today. The challenge is not what the judges have designed, it is what they intend to create. We must be ready for anything." The final challenge was more than a competition. It was a trial of survival, strategy, and trust. And it would decide not only the winner of the contest, but also the reputation of humanity among the Interstellar Alliance. The arena was massive, a labyrinth suspended over a void filled with swirling energy storms. Platforms of metal and crystal floated in unstable patterns, some moving slowly, others jerking violently. Energy barriers flashed unpredictably, and holographic projections of deadly creatures roamed sections of the course. The final challenge required teams to retrieve a central energy core while navigating the hazards and outmaneuvering rival delegates. As they stepped into the arena, Zyra extended a clawed hand toward Rylan. "Trust me," she said simply. "We move together. Hesitation is the enemy." Platforms shifted without warning, and energy pulses threatened to knock them into the void below. Zyra moved like water, adjusting instantly to each shift, her claws gripping surfaces with perfect precision. Rylan followed her lead, matching her rhythm and learning the subtle cues she gave with the movement of her limbs and the flicker of her glowing patterns. Halfway through the initial section, a rival team attempted to block their path, hoping to knock them off balance. Zyra's eyes flickered with awareness, analyzing their speed, weight, and trajectory. She extended a limb to gently deflect the opponent without causing harm, then propelled both herself and Rylan forward in a seamless motion. The rival team lost balance and fell into a trap, and Rylan realized the brilliance of Zyra's strategy. She was not only fast and strong, but also precise and intelligent. As they advanced, a sudden alarm blared through the arena. Energy barriers shifted violently, and holographic predators appeared, their eyes glowing red as they lunged toward the competitors. Many teams panicked, retreating or falling into traps. Zyra's patterns brightened as she assessed the situation. "Focus on observation first," she instructed. "The hazards are predictable if you watch closely." Together, they moved with uncanny synchronization, retrieving smaller energy nodes along the way to unlock access to the final core. Then the shadowy observers revealed themselves fully. A group of alien figures, tall and metallic-skinned, appeared on the periphery of the arena. They activated devices that altered the environment, creating new hazards and forcing platforms to shift unpredictably. Rylan's heart pounded. He had known this day would come, but the reality was more intense than he had imagined. "They are testing us directly," Zyra said. "Do not react with panic. Trust in the pattern. Trust in me." Zyra moved first, her limbs adjusting perfectly to the rhythm of the energy waves. Rylan followed closely, using every lesson he had learned over the past days. When a sudden surge threatened to knock him off, Zyra extended a limb to stabilize him, their movements so synchronized it seemed almost instinctual. As they reached the far side, one of the shadowy figures activated a trap that caused a massive energy pulse to sweep across the arena. Rylan froze for a fraction of a second, but Zyra's glowing patterns flared, signaling an immediate adjustment. She grabbed his arm, propelling them both out of danger, and Rylan realized once again that his trust in her was not just wise, it was necessary for survival. Finally, they approached the central platform where the energy core awaited. The last section was a labyrinth of shifting walls and rotating barriers, designed to confuse and exhaust any competitor. Zyra studied it carefully, her multifaceted eyes analyzing every movement, every pattern, every potential hazard. "We go together," she said. "Step by step, rhythm by rhythm, hesitation will be punished, precision will win." The shadowy observers attempted interference, manipulating walls and projecting false obstacles, but Zyra anticipated each move, guiding them safely through every trap. At the center, the energy core pulsed with brilliant light. To retrieve it, they had to bypass a final, high-energy barrier. Zyra examined it. "We combine timing and force," she said. "I will shield you as we pass." He had complete faith in her judgment. As she activated a protective energy field, they stepped through the barrier. Sparks flew and the platform trembled, but they reached the core safely. Rylan grasped it, feeling its power hum through his hands. Zyra stabilized him, her patterns glowing brightly in a silent acknowledgement of their victory. But the challenge was not yet over. The shadowy observers, recognizing their success, activated the final stage. The arena itself began to collapse. Platforms disintegrated, energy barriers intensified, and the void below seemed to surge upward. Panic rippled through the remaining competitors, but Rylan and Zyra remained calm, relying on each other completely. "Follow me exactly," Zyra instructed. "Do not think. Move." The judges' signals confirmed their victory. Other teams were still trapped or had failed entirely. The hall erupted in murmurs, some in admiration, others in disbelief. Rylan looked at Zyra, their glowing patterns reflecting relief, pride, and a bond forged in trials of intelligence, skill, and courage. The shadowy observers retreated, silent but undoubtedly taking note. Rylan realized that while the contest had ended, the universe's challenges were far from over. Yet in that moment, humanity had proven something remarkable. Humans were not merely observers or participants. They were capable of courage, intelligence, and loyalty that could rival even the most extraordinary species. Zyra turned to him, her voice soft but firm. "You have learned well. Humans are more than appearance and instinct. You see truth where others see only surface. That will serve you and your species well." For the first time, humans were recognized not just as newcomers, but as a species capable of vision, courage, and depth. Zyra's scariness, once a source of fear, was now a symbol of brilliance and loyalty. The judges presented the final awards. Rylan and Zyra stood together as champions, the culmination of the contest that had tested every aspect of their being. The hall erupted in applause, not just for their skill, but for their example. They had shown that true greatness lies beyond appearances, beyond fear, and beyond expectation. Later, in a quiet chamber overlooking the galaxy, Rylan and Zyra reflected on their journey. "I never expected this," Rylan admitted. "Not just winning, but the respect, the understanding. Humanity has a place here. Maybe even more than we thought. And to think I chose you because I saw something different, something special. I never imagined it would matter so much. Together, we have achieved what few could imagine." Humanity, he understood now, was capable of greatness in ways even the galaxy had not yet fully acknowledged. Zyra's presence beside him was a testament to that truth. She had challenged expectations, defied fear, and shown what true brilliance looked like. And Rylan had chosen her, not because she was safe or conventional, but because she was extraordinary. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges, wonders, and dangers. But Rylan and Zyra had proven that humanity could stand among the stars, not with brute force or superficial beauty, but with intelligence, courage, and the wisdom to see beyond the surface. As they prepared to return to the delegation, the shadowy observers watched silently from afar, their expressions inscrutable. Rylan knew their journey was far from over. The galaxy held many mysteries, and new challenges would inevitably arise. But for now, humanity had earned its place, and he had found an ally unlike any other. Together they stepped forward, champions not only of the contest, but of a greater truth. Greatness is measured not by appearance, not by fear, but by insight, courage, and the ability to recognize the extraordinary. And somewhere beyond the hall, in the infinite expanse of the stars, the galaxy began to see humanity, not as a species defined by limitations, but as one capable of daring choices, extraordinary partnerships, and brilliance that could challenge the very universe itself. Rylan glanced at Zyra, and she met his gaze, her glow steady and reassuring. They had faced trials, danger, and the unknown. Together they had prevailed, and together they would face whatever came next, as allies, friends, and symbols of what humans could achieve when they chose to see beyond the obvious. The contest had ended, but their story, the story of courage, trust, and the human spirit, was only beginning.